America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Manny Rosales, who is our National Coalitions Director at Job Creators Network. Now, please subscribe to the show at SalemPodcastNetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we've lined up a very special episode of Main Street Matters. We'll be joined by two presidents from various chambers of commerce around the country, and they will discuss the good and the bad of what they must work with every day, including what current policies are acceptable and what needs to be changed. But before we bring them in, I want to talk to you a little bit about Manny, because you and I go back, about 20 years, I think, when we first met. But you yourself have a great story, so I want to just spend a couple minutes talking about you and kind of your background and what you've done.
Sure. It's a long background.
Yeah, we'll make it short.
In which aspect do you want me to start?
Well, why don't you start a little bit about where you come from and your background?
Well, I always tell everybody I was born in Nicaragua, but I was made in America.
Okay, good.
Right? I was born in Nicaragua and raised in San Francisco, California, which you would call a real, bastion to the left.
Right.
And I was one of the few conservative Republicans in that city. Mm-hmm. But through my career in banking and financial services, including money markets, I was always looking for opportunities for business. So I started getting close to chambers of commerces. And my father-in-law at the time tells me, "Hey, Manny, we're trying to start the San Francisco Hispanic Chamber. Why don't you join us?" So you know how it is when you get grouped into one of these nonprofits.
Right.
Before you know it, I was the president of the chamber. And before you know it, I was elected to run the state. So I was the chairman of the State Chamber of Commerce with about 800,000 members. And because of that, then I got elected to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber. Okay. And I was also on the California Chamber of Commerce, which is the main chamber. Okay. So I'm a chamber guy, always and a small business guy. So I've always been in that aspect. And because of that involvement, obviously, that gets you into the political arena because there's a lot of issues that obviously small businesses are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Right. Always, with government interference. Yeah. So that was, how I started getting involved in chambers and politics. And then I got lucky, and I was asked by the President George W. Bush to come serve in D.C. At the Small Business Administration, and I was given the honor to be the Associate Administrator for the Office of International Trade, which I didn't know existed. Right. Being in the chamber movement forever, but I never thought that the SBA was involved internationally. But they have a mandate to help small businesses grow and export, and provide all the services that the SBA provides to businesses on the domestic level internationally. And not only that, but because it was an international function, it also became part of the President's Export Council. Gotcha. So we were also international relations, international, environment, and helping on free trade agreements and developing nations through MOUs and agreements, and also represented the United States at various conferences like APEC Ministerial, OECD in Europe, Summit of the Americas. So we were involved internationally. At the same time helping small business domestically. Right. And then small business internationally connect with our small business domestically to grow and import and export. Okay.
So, and now my understanding too is you also served in the military?
Yes, unfortunately, and fortunately, I was working part-time at the time, and if you don't have enough credits, at that time there was a draft. Right. This is during the Vietnam War. Right. Well, actually, it was the Vietnam era because the war was not fully declared. So I got drafted into the military, and I wound up in Germany for 2 years in an artillery unit as a combat medic. And it was great experience because you really learn teamwork.
Yeah.
You really learn how to be prepared. You really learn how to cover your buddies' backs.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you learn that the real world is here.
Yeah.
The United States is the place. It's unbelievable how you find those things out by being abroad for such a long time.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, thank you for your service, of
Oh,
course,
thank you.
and what you
Thank
did
you.
for our country.
Absolutely.
And then you and I met, I guess, like I said, about 20 years ago or so.
Yes. Yes, we did.
When Chairman Steele, Michael Steele, was chair of the
RNC.
Republican National Committee.
Yes.
And you did Hispanic
No,
Coalitions
no.
Outreach? Is that
No,
right?
it was actually the deputy director for coalitions for
Oh,
everything.
okay. Gotcha,
So
for
we
everything.
work at that time. Obviously, one of the big issues, popped up with the Tea Party, and it was
Right.
a lot to do with healthcare.
Right.
So we had Pakistani Doctors
okay.
Association. We
Gotcha.
had with the Filipino association. So we had different groups.
Gotcha.
It wasn't just Hispanics, but obviously.
Okay.
That's a big component.
Right.
And one of the things that I used to say when we were on the road is everybody was talking about President Obama, being the first black president. I said, yeah,
Right.
but you guys are forgetting you got Michael Steele.
Right, yeah.
Supposedly
Yeah.
in this white controlled RNC as the
Right.
first black
Right.
president.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
It was a big deal as a
Yeah,
black
I
chairman.
remember that.
So
Yeah.
he's and he did a affordable job. And,
Yeah.
Now he's out there doing other things. But,
Yeah,
but we'll leave that alone.
We'll talk about that
Exactly.
for a little bit. But so then, I asked you to join our organization, and you've had this great idea of reaching out to chambers across the country. Walk us through just a couple minutes of what you're thinking about and how these chambers across the country are joining Job Creators Network, and in terms of some of our fights and efforts that we're doing.
Sure. We've been, in the short period of time, we've got 3 chambers already that we have signed memorandums of understanding. You got 2 that are going to be on today. Unfortunately, the gentleman from the Orange County Coalition of Chambers is not feeling well, so he can't join us.
Right.
But the whole idea is that small businesses are small businesses, and it's unfortunately sometimes small businesses that don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So one of the things that we wanted to do is obviously bring them the leverage that the Job Creators Network has, because
Right.
you're hearing, working on national and sometimes I'm sure state and local issues that really impact small businesses, and this
Right.
is a way for them to get the word out to their membership base. And at the same time, we support them and they support our efforts in reference to legislation that's impacting negatively on small businesses throughout the country.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, and they're doing a great job, and we got some great leaders out there.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I mean, and John's going to be bringing them in at this point. And I'm excited to bring them on because I think, the perspective that they can bring of what's going on, really interestingly enough, one's from Rhode Island, one's from California, right? So from coast to coast almost. It'll be interesting to see. Small to big. So it'll be interesting to hear what they say, and I'm looking forward to having them join us and talk to them about what's going on.
Two great leaders have done a great job, and very impressive.
So joining us today, as mentioned, is Oscar Mejías, the president and CEO of the Hispanic Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, and also Julian Cañete, who serves as the president and CEO of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce, and I think it's Julian. Apologize. Julian. I have a friend who's Julian, that's why.
Well, in Spanish is Julian.
Yeah, so that must be why. And again, thank you very much for joining. We're just talking a little bit about, we have from coast to coast and from small to big. So we're excited to have you guys on board. And Manny, why don't you go ahead and talk about how you met your 2 friends that have now joined our affiliation here.
Sure, absolutely. But first of all, Julian Cañete goes back a long way with me. I think about 30, 40 years maybe. Julian was a young, he was a young fellow that was started to work at the chamber. I don't know if you were an intern or if you were a young up-and-comer, but basically when I was chairman there, he joined and was assisting, and he helped us set up a lot of new initiatives, including districts within the state compared to what the chamber was like. And over the years, he worked his way up, and now he's the the president and CEO, and he's done a fantastic job. Oscar, I met Oscar a few years back, very involved in the energy aspect, because Rhode Island has obviously offshore, and they're doing some other things there that are innovative. And Oscar and I connected, and he participated in many events. Matter of fact, he went to the California Hispanic Chamber Conference event, and he's obviously, both of these gentlemen's chambers are part of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber, which is the national organization. And they're both doing fantastic jobs in their chambers, and they know the challenges that face them and the small businesses.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so gentlemen, I'm going to kind of kick it off with some of the questions. You know, when we talk about your two different chambers, what are you hearing from small businesses about the biggest challenges that they're facing in today's economy? And obviously, you guys represent, you know, Hispanic businesses. Is that any different, or there's specific things that are more relevant and pertinent in terms of challenges for the Hispanic small business than for the general market, let's say?
Okay, thank you very much. And it's a really an honor to be here with you in this program. So thank you for the opportunity. I think that through the country, we have a lot of common issues and challenges when we talk about small businesses. However, here in Rhode Island, as everybody knows, Rhode Island is the smallest state in the country. We have most of our small businesses are classified as micro businesses, less than 10 employees, maybe generating less than $200,000 per year. So it's a very small state, and the economy is not one of the biggest in the country. However, I think that the Latino business community is doing great in the last 5 years. But definitely with the fluctuations in the economy, the sustained increase in cost, not just in materials or inventory, but in renting of commercial spaces, is a big challenge. So even if we talk about entrepreneurs, it's worse, because they are creating companies. We have had more than 150 new companies in the last 2 years that facing $2,500 per month in a small commercial space is too much for them. So I feel that it's one of the biggest challenges that we have right now in this state. And, you know, with we could say, instability of the economy, that make them to be afraid of making an investment, paying that rent, or even buying a building, because it's uncertain what is the future of the economy in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right, right. And that's tough, because I think in Rhode Island, correct me if I'm wrong, but 99% of the businesses are small businesses in Rhode Island. So when they have, you know, kind of fear of investing in that growth and in the businesses, it's just really tough. And Julian, are you hearing the same, or in California, you obviously have kind of some crazy things going on in California. Tell me what you're hearing from your small business owners, and again, if there's some specific things on Hispanic small business owners that you're hearing from.
Sure. Well, how much time we got? Because there's a lot. You know, California. Yeah, you know, California's a very large state, and you know, our Hispanic businesses, number one, face the same barriers and roadblocks and, you know, obstacles that all businesses really face here in the state. Though our Hispanic businesses have some unique issues in regards to language barrier, you know, access to capital, those type of things. But, you know, the biggest thing here in California is, number one, our regulatory environment, right? That it you know, a lot of times when they write these regulations, they do not take in consideration how that impact is going to be on small business. And then, you know, when we talk about coming out of the pandemic, you know, supply chain issues, you know, we're a major, you know, ports up and down the coast, and so a lot of our businesses have supply chain issues. You know, they just recently closed down the railheads at the border, and that impacts us. Labor costs, you know, and And out here in California, everybody unionizes, right? I mean, Starbucks are union now.
That's crazy.
But really, regulation compounded with economic issues that arise, even during a good economic times, um, it is still hard for our businesses to cope with a lot of the regulatory issues that maybe sometimes stymie and slow down
Right.
growth, and even job
Right.
creation, for that matter of fact. A big issue now is, the state, there's legislators looking at how do we regulate AI, right? And we're saying, well, first of all, you got to understand what you're going to regulate before you hurt our small businesses who are using AI successfully. So these are things out here in California that we face, along with economic conditions, but also our heavy regulatory environment as well.
I'm curious from a small business perspective. You talk about the regulatory environment. I know that's something that was huge under the previous administration in terms of trying to reduce that regulatory environment, the overregulation, I should say. And that's something that, unfortunately, I think we've seen it kind of climb again in this administration, and in the California administration right now, I think under the governor. But crime, high prices, high energy costs, I'm sure is impacting both of your chamber's members. Oscar, tell me about how they're reacting or how they're basically dealing and coping with these issues.
Well, in this point, I think that the Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, is playing a very important role. We keep constant communication with our base. We keep inviting to Facebook Live program, inviting authorities and experts in different areas to share trustable information. Because I think that the biggest enemy that we have in our community are rumors and all that fake information that start to circulate in media. So part of what we do is keep them informed with the real information from trustable sources, but also providing technical assistance and support in every way that they need, connecting with other organizations, connecting with the state agencies or the municipality. We are here to help them, and we are all the time spreading the voice that everything that we need to face, we will face it together. So that creates trust and a little bit more confidence than in the past when they were alone. So it's the way that the chamber is trying to help them over all those issues.
Right. Yep. And Julian, what about in California? I mean, how are the small business owners coping with all of this overregulation and all the other economic issues that you mentioned?
Yeah, you mentioned crime, and another part of that, another big issue out here in California, of course, is affordable housing and homelessness, which is also impacting business, right? You may not think so, but a lot of our work is in the advocacy field, um, and educating our businesses, just as was mentioned, on the issues. We just had our legislative economic forecast, and we do that every year so that our business owners can understand, what is this legislature thinking about doing this next year, and how is the economy going to impact, some of that legislation that's coming through. Our state is facing, and we felt that it was important that our businesses also understand how does a $68 billion deficit in the state budget impact them, right? And it will, and eventually will, whether it's through contracting, et cetera. So, a lot of our work is in the advocacy area, trying to get our business to cope. I mean, we have our business development side, which does all the lending and the business programming. But again, very aggressive advocacy program along with the education program, as we advocate for some type of relief for our small businesses, whether it's through legislation. We just last year we passed AB 2019, which will require all state agencies by law now to meet a 25% procurement for small and diverse businesses. As well as last year, we got the governor to sign a bill that now requires any hospital in California, healthcare facility with over $50 million in revenue to have a diverse and small business plan in place to better utilize those small
Right.
businesses. Um, and in those cases, it wasn't a regulatory item that we were putting on our plates. It's more of us collaborating with these government agencies and hospitals and large companies to make sure that the opportunities, the economic opportunities, are created for our small business owners, and therefore creating jobs, right, and good middle class paying jobs.
Hey, Julian, let me get your input because you mentioned this to me before. Is this regulation, overregulation, particularly when we were talking about electric vehicles, particularly trucks, and you told me the impact that's going to have on Hispanic truckers in reference to how they're going to be able to abide by those laws that are coming in 10 years.
Yeah. So what's happening is we have a clean air plan. Zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2045. Total renewable energy out here in California. Um, our problem isn't that we don't want clean air. We want clean air. We want a clean environment for the future, but it's how we get there, right? And it's the roadmap that is designed to get there with the least impact on our small business owners. Right now, our small trucking firms are faced with having to convert to electric trucks. Um, where technology's there. There still needs to be a little bit more technology, but the problem is their existing trucks have no value. So how do they go in now and purchase? And these trucks are about $500,000, anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000 to purchase, and you have no type of collateral to put up to purchase a new truck. Um, so here in California, a trucking firm here, it may cost them to take a product from Sacramento, California to Los Angeles, which is 375 miles. It may cost them $2,500, to do that. That may be their fee. But a trucker can come in from Nevada, not meet those same standards, and do that for $1,500, right? So again, our small business owners are being impacted just by state regulations, which have good intentions, but have some unintended consequences for our small businesses. And that's, as we look at legislation, that's really what we look at, right? How is this going to impact our small and medium-sized businesses throughout the state and impact them and impact our job market and our economy here in California?
Right.
Yeah. And Oscar, you got the same kinds of issue back in Rhode Island in reference to the energy sector because of the fact that, you have to import all your energy.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, because we are in a small state, our problem in that sense are not so big as in California. But definitely, the state, I think that is 2 steps behind to reach that point with the regulation in terms of energy. Right now, the efforts are focused in create more energy because the problem with the monopoly that the big companies has in this side of the country is a big problem. So I feel that for now, what we are more concentrated as an organization to help small business is to create more opportunities in the energy field because Rhode Island doesn't produce energy except the new project with the blue economy and the wind farms and all that stuff. So we are right now more focused in create that energy, but for sure we are 2 steps behind a state as California, Texas, New York. Um, we are watching, we are learning, and we are being prepared for the moment that we need to face that kind of problems.
Yeah, let me ask you, gentlemen, because since we develop a collaborative agreement to help each other, how is the partnerships that you guys have been established to further the chamber's goals? How are you working on that, and those kind of networks that help you guys leverage and provide more, product services and opportunities for your members?
Well, I can say that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Rhode Island is a very young organization. It was founded in 2016. And for us, the key word is collaboration. One of the things that has helped us to be a strong organization is because we have partnerships and collaboration agreement at every level with the state, with municipalities with more Latino presence, universities and colleges, private companies, and other non-profit. In fact, we are founder of the Small Business Support Organization Coalition. So we have partnership and agreement with a lot of organizations. So at the end, the chamber, which is what we are doing, is creating a shared resources platform using not just our resources, but the resources with other organizations. And we have created a very effective reference system. If someone comes to my organization asking, for example, to sell their product in big supermarkets, we use other organization as a specialist. But in our site, we create the action plan. We send the referral to other organization, but the business owner come back to us so we can complete all the plan that we prepare for them. And it's a very effective system. It's working very well. And definitely collaboration and partnership are so critical in case as our organization, which is a small one, but we are growing really, really fast.
So, Julian, I know you got a lot of partners out there.
Yeah, so we look at partnerships in a couple of ways, right? Number one, is there a partnership that we can create that helps reduce the cost to our small businesses, right? Discount programs, etc., that may be out there. But more importantly to us are some of the policy partnerships that we have. Partnerships like we have with Job Creators Network, right? Because you got to remember, in California, we're basically fighting a two-front war, right? When you talk about legislation, there's federal legislation that comes down, and of course, there's the state legislation. We have our own minimum wage, which is over $20 an hour now. But then there are issues on the federal level where we need those partnerships to help us also have favorable legislation for our small businesses that will help them grow. So a lot of our partnerships are centered around policy issues. And we feel that's really important because we feel that's where small business is really being hit the hardest, right? I mean, we know small businesses are the backbone of the economy and a job creation in the nation. And, how do we continue to make sure that they, remain in that status in creating those jobs, for the future of our economy here in the nation. So, we have partnerships with, as I said, with organizations like Job Creators Networks, with state agencies, with other, CBOs, nonprofits, educational institutions, etc. And part of it too, our partnerships we have 120 chambers or 125 plus chambers that are members of the State Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And so another partnership that we do is in education, right? How do we build capacity in them so they can better help our small businesses succeed day to day?
So one question for both of you is, in terms of the primary challenges and opportunities that actually exist in your region, I mean, I'd like to focus on that a little bit because, there are some challenges, obviously, like we've talked about across the economy and across the country. But what specifically do you see in each of your regions as the biggest opportunities for your Hispanic small businesses?
Well, I think number one, of course, we just mentioned the energy field, right, has some huge opportunities. Our problem is our infrastructure in California ready to accommodate all that infrastructure work that needs to be done, right? Manny mentioned that we were working with some truck drivers, and we were attempting to put in a charging station for 50 EV8 trucks, electric trucks, replacing diesel trucks. Once we found the land and met all the requirements of the grant that was going to be given to build this, then we were told that it'd be 2 years before they can get the 10 megawatts of energy into that site. So even though we have these opportunities in energy, we have other obstacles that are in place that so we can't really develop a lot of those opportunities. And that for California, as you know, that's a huge growth area in all types of energy, but especially when you talk about electric charging, electric vehicle charging, is some of that other infrastructure is not in place, so that hinders, you know, that slows it down a little bit. I mean, we still move forward with it, um, but again, we go back to regulation. The state wants to uh, meet these clean energy goals. But this, at the same time, we do realize that you know electrification is not the answer. It's a number of different energy sources that need to meet that need, so we can grow that sector of the economy. Um, and so, when California wants to reduce oil extraction here in California, and be dependent on more foreign sources of energy, I mean, that I tell them the math doesn't add up for me. So again, we're seeing a lot of the regulatory issues that have been created is what really kind of stymies some of those economic opportunities that are out there for our business owners. I mean, California is full of economic opportunities. I just told you that we have regulators that now want to regulate AI and just jump into it, not knowing what those impacts are going to be down the road. So now we stifle innovation and innovative jobs. So
Well, one of the things that has not been working well in this state is the real participation of Latino business in government contracting. So we have a 2.5 based on a study that was released in 2021. The real percentage of Latino business utilization is about 2.5%. So that means, yes, that means nothing, nothing. So we have been concentrated in the last 2 years in change that. So we see opportunities not just in the energy field, but in the healthcare area, and we are working, negotiating with organizations like Blue Cross Blue Shield, CVS, United Healthcare, Neighborhood Health Plan to find opportunities in the supply chain, to be part of the supply chain that had been complicated and almost impossible in the last years. So we are working also with the government. The governor, I sit with the governor, and he told me I will propose the increase the percentage of minority business certification. And I say, okay, but what we do having 2,000 business certified and just 2 or 3 of them getting contract? So we are doing anything, nothing. So eh, I see opportunity in that field, and we are very focused in change the rule of the game in the state regarding uh, access to contract, not just with the government, but with big corporations that are from here, like Citizen Bank, like CVS, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, that is have a very strong presence in this state. So the opportunity that I could see in the, let's say, medium high scale is increase the participation of the business. And then we have in place a program that is called Minority Business Support Center, where we are preparing them to get ready to do not be to do not hear anymore the big excuse. They are very small. They are not ready. They don't know what about the quality of the services. So we are working in that. So no more excuses. We have our business ready to take any kind of contract. And in the chamber, we are providing back office support. We are providing mentoring. We are providing some alternative in funding for bonding, for insurance, all that stuff. I see that that is the big opportunity that we have in the next 2 or 3 years. Of course, there will be another in the area of education. For example, we are partnering with 2 or 3 colleges and 1 university to create an educational portal where our business owner could go direct to see a program that could help them without navigate the very complicated educational websites of those organizations. So I could see that in government contracting, corporation contracting, supply chain, and educational area are the biggest opportunity for our businesses.
I think it's interesting what we should do, now that we have this kind of affiliation, is try to kind of elevate, what are more regional issues kind of to a national level, because I would imagine in your conversations with other Hispanic chambers out there, you're probably hearing some of the similar areas of opportunity. So I think being able to elevate them to a national level and get that kind of focus, even though we're talking state governments mostly, sometimes, having the push from the top can actually help push the states along. So I think that's something that we can help with. As we talk about kind of the ideas and different things that we're going to be doing together, first of all, in 2024, what are the two big projects, let's say, or big project that both of you are working on within your chambers in your states? And Julian, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, and here in California, so two prongs, right? I'll go with the, business growth first. And, we continue to grow our business programs out here in California. We do everything from small business consulting to capital readiness programs to now we just implemented a veteran program that specifically answers the needs of veteran business owners here in California, especially Hispanic veteran business owners. So we continue to grow that area of our, we call our business success programs, making our businesses understand how they can be successful, how they can be more successful, and therefore, growing their revenues, creating more jobs here in California, and seeing new opportunities, out there. And I think on the second side, it's our advocacy side, right? We have a bill right now. We were talking about energy, and AB 1198 would require the state now to report out on where are they investing those dollars. Those dollars that they're getting, whether it's from taxes or from cap and trade, are those dollars being equally distributed across the spectrum of communities here in California? So when we talk about small business, are dollars being invested in small business here to create jobs, to create new businesses, to create new opportunities? And I think, and I'll put on that as well as one of the big things that we're going to be watching, which is now a priority, is a $68 billion state deficit. We don't want to see them balance that budget on the backs of small business, for instance, right? We still have a huge, from the pandemic, we still have a huge unemployment debt to pay off. And last year, there was a $32 billion gap, and the governor did not allocate some of the dollars to pay down that debt. So all businesses are still paying down that debt for the state, right?
Yeah, well, when you mentioned the conversation between other chamber of commerce, that's true. We share information and we face the same challenges, a lot of common challenges. One of them is the access to capital. So what happened in the state? More than 60% of the application made for a small Latino business are rejected because they are not bankable. They don't have story with financial institutions. So we created here in the chamber a microloan program called Building Bankable Business. What we agree with a financial institution to create microloan 5-year 1% interest rate under a special program. But 2 years later, if the business owner take the classes, the financial literacy classes that we propose, if they use the money as they propose in the initial application, the chamber will pay off the rest of the loan because it's up to $5,000, so we can pay off $3,000. But the most important part is that the business owner, 2 years later, has created an history with the bank. So now they are bankable. They have been reported to the credit bureau. They have that story with the financial institution so they can come back and ask for more money. With that program, we have more than 70 business this year. And this is something that we will uh, try to expand next year because we are removing again all those excuses that the financial institutions say, oh, they are not bankable, the credit score, oh, they are not ready. We are working in that and has been a very, very successful program. In other side, yeah, and in other side, additional to the minority business uh, participation, utilization in government contracting and international commerce. We are working, connecting business with Dominican Republic, Colombia, Mexico, and Guatemala, opening opportunity, creating exporters here in Rhode Island. Being very small, they are starting to produce, looking a new market. And in other side, Rhode Island is geographically very well located, very close to Massachusetts, to New York, to Connecticut. So we are trying to create that point of distribution for international business. So those are the things that we are, the big project that we are focused for next year.
Okay, that's great. And access to capital is something that, just in general, our small businesses have really been hurting on, especially over the past year plus with the rates the way they've gone. We're hearing that it's almost impossible for almost any small business owner at this point to get any kind of sizable loan necessary for expansion. So it sounds like it's even more aggravated for the Hispanic community than it is for kind of even the general market. That's something that I think we need to really tackle for 24. Absolutely. Is how do we help on this access to capital? And I think we can find some common themes amongst all these chambers that we're talking about and try again to elevate it, because I think part of what we're hoping that this association kind of affiliation will help with is kind of bring national attention to these matters that you guys are feeling regionally, but we really do have to elevate them, I think, to national levels, because it's a real major impact. Well, my hopes is that, Manny, as you reach out and we bring more Hispanic chambers kind of to this, what I call kind of coalition, because I think there are a lot of common issues and things that we can tackle, access to credit, regulatory environment, stuff like that. That is so important to be able to address, I think, also at a national level and also at your state level. But I always say there's power in numbers, right? So hopefully you guys can also help us reach out to other counterparts of yours in other states, right? Because this is how we win, right? It's through coalitions, as you know. It's through increasing kind of the safety of numbers, right? So that you're not one state or one region or one association being pointed out. This really, I think, what we're talking about are national issues that need to be talked about at a national level. And then how that kind of, affects you guys locally, you guys can modify accordingly. But we do have, I think, some really big national issues, Manny, that I think we can tackle. And so.
But I think that what you're saying is so important, not just in the side that we need to bring together all the problems and all the issues and things that we need to solve, and we need to ask more support from the government or other private organization to help us. But for me, it's more important that we can share at national level our experience, our program, because for sure, every Chamber of Commerce has implemented a very successful programs that could help other states, other chamber to success. I always mention in the regional meetings about the microloan program. The access to capital is something that we can start to solve at the small groups, but nationally, in a moment, we can share experience, lesson learned. Can you imagine how much I can learn from California, which is huge? We could be like a 5% of the size of California Chamber of Commerce, but they have an experience that could be very, very useful for a small organization like mine.
Right. And I think that's kind of the idea. That what we want to do is kind of bring folks together to share these experiences and learnings because obviously, there's an opportunity there. And look, California is going to learn maybe from you on microloans or something. I mean, I think it's the sharing of ideas that makes it so powerful. And we're such an important part of the economy, right? I mean, the reality is we've heard kind of the shifting of, Hispanics away from certain party to another party, right? But it really is about kind of economic sense, right? It's growing your business owners. And I've always said, I don't care if they're Hispanic business owners or Democrats or Republicans or independents, right? They're one of the biggest, most entrepreneurial groups in our country, right? And we should be doing more to encourage their growth and not stymie it through overregulations, for example, which we know at a national level is just killing our small businesses in general. So we hope to work more with you guys. And like I said, if you guys could help us, send the word out to your colleagues and say, please join this, because the more we all join, the more we all know, right? The more we share, the better we are going to be. So, Manny, I don't know if you have any last question or any closing thoughts.
I just some thoughts in reference to the regulations, access to capital, particularly microloans, AI, and future innovations. Is that one of the things I was thinking, since we have this partnership that we're beginning to develop, that we possibly create some kind of a committee where we all get together and come up with ideas that we can present.
That's great, yeah.
And then actually make it happen on a national level. Because I know that access to capital, obviously the SBA is part of that, but they only guarantee. They don't really give you access. But there are community lending organizations out there that do that and get grants from banks and other organizations for you to lend money into the community. So we can begin looking at those other areas and actually begin to help all small businesses, because that's what it's all about.
And I will tell you guys that, in fact, I think personally we need to have less government, honestly, not more government intrusion. But I think we need to leverage the strength of the Hispanic community and market in large corporations, right? I think we need to put some pressure on large corporations, maybe even on the micro lending part, to help provide some of that capital, right? Because they should be doing that. I mean, they know that they need successful small business vendors, customers, et cetera. And so I think we should leverage that community and the purchasing power, quite frankly, and the buying power that we have to be able to kind of make that happen. And so, well, gentlemen, we're out of time. So I appreciate the time you've taken. Thank you all also very much who are listening for taking the time to join us on Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. And thank you all for taking the time to be with us and to listen to this. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network, and new episodes are actually debut every Wednesday and Friday. So please subscribe to the podcast at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast. And we'll be back soon with another episode of Main Street Matters. And goodbye for now. And thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Manny.